To Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
All right, here we are on Cut Down Day. As names are trickling out according to reports, we'll wait until the official list comes out at 4 p.m. this afternoon for full roster cuts.
Mike Danger.
How you feeling after everything that we've seen so far this summer? That's the question.
How you feeling? You're excited for football.
Yeah? Are you excited for this team? Are you excited about what 2024 could look like for the Buffalo Bills?
Gene Battaglia.
Can I frame it a different way? I'm going to frame it this way. Where would this Bills team be without Josh Allen? It's not a first-place team. It's not a winning team.
They're picking in the top 10.
They're picking in the top 5.
Yeah, probably.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome in. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, open for business. Appreciate you stopping by. 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, we've even got our video stream up for you. You can watch the Sports Bar on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. You can watch our video stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia. And Gino, we got a lot to get to today. It's cut down day.
Yeah.
I wanted to first, right off the top, apologize for my verbal stroke late in our show yesterday. We're wrapping up the show yesterday, and I'm struggling. I don't know what it was. We were in the middle of discussing how these baseball teams were coming up with draft order for their fantasy football leagues. And we were telling the story about how the manager in Arizona was taking BP, and the ball that went the furthest got the number 1 overall pick,
Right.
and so on and so on.
Right.
And I was trying to explain why I didn't think it was a good idea. Well, I didn't like that versus the one where they were trying to be accurate. The A's were throwing balls from the upper deck and trying to get it to land within a certain landing zone to determine what their draft order is. And I was trying to come up with a word about baseball that made that feel like the Arizona manager's method was less. It wasn't a preferred method for determining draft order. The word I was trying to come up with was variance, and I don't know why the word variance got somewhere in my head. I couldn't come up with it. I mean, we were a good 30 seconds of me trying to, that thing in your brain that makes your brain hurt when you're trying to remember somebody's name.
That's where you just got to punt and move on. That's where, okay, I don't know the word, and we don't need
I know, and
yeah.
I should. I woke up this morning, and it was still weighing on my mind. Like, it hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's when you feel pain in your brain. It's like you see somebody, you know their name, but you can't remember their name. That kind of pain.
So how Danger and I communicate throughout the non-show hours mostly is text, like most people, right? So here I am in the 9 a.m. sales meeting, and I got variance!
Variance was the word. And I want to apologize to you. I want to apologize to our regulars, our listeners. I think I was having a stroke or something was happening at the time that I couldn't come up with the word, and I completely froze, which is rare for me. It doesn't happen that often, but I feel really bad that it happened live on the air where I completely, some people would call it a brain fart. I just was searching for a word, and I knew the word that I was searching for, but it didn't compute. It didn't come out. So,
is this January 50 for you, buddy?
Yeah. It is. I'm doing brain training and meditation and all kinds of things to try and keep my brain sharp. But I can tell you, and I can say this up front as we're starting to embark on our show today, that we're probably going to get some things wrong because there's a lot of data getting thrown at us, a lot of stories getting thrown at us, a lot of names getting thrown at us. We're going to try and do our best to make sense of all of the cutdowns happening across the NFL and the Bills' final 53-man roster, which we should get official word from the team at some point while we're on the air this afternoon. The deadline is 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, as the expert here we're bringing on today, 2 of them, in fact. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, his normal Tuesday slot, joining us here, as certainly we do have some reports that we could say, okay, that's valid. Ryan Talbot was the first to put out there, wait a second, Tyrell Shavers is not on the final or the initial 53.
By the way, I'm glad you came in for the start of the show. I thought you would be doing a victory lap around the building after proclaiming that Shavers shouldn't have been on this team yesterday.
Well, he just lost his job. I don't want to take pride in that.
I get that, but
it happens every summer.
Do you think though that everything that was happening with Shavers, and shame on us for not saying this is potentially what it could be. Teams do this all the time. You try to drum up value for a player so that maybe you can get somebody or something back in return in way of a trade. Like, would there be a team out there desperate to trade for Tyrell Shavers? I don't know what that team looks like, if that team exists, but the way they were hyping him up during training camp almost feels like they were building a case that he was something more than maybe what he actually is.
I don't think it was actually the Bills doing this. I think it was us, the fan base, everything else. Like, hey, I don't like MVS. I don't look. Chase Claypool isn't on the field. Where you go next? Hey, here's Shavers. And we see some things, and everybody kind of debates this. I don't think the Bills. And then when Sean McDermott went out of his way to pump the tires of Tyrell Shavers, I'm thinking, no, that sounds like the kiss of death. That sounds like, hey, we really like the work you're putting in, but you're just not good enough. So, and what would lead you to believe in any of those 3 preseason games that Shavers has to be on the final 53? Years ago, I remember there was this receiver from the Giants that one year, boy, he's really good, and they cut him. All right, well, he was on the practice squad, and they brought him back next year. Wow, he's really good. They should keep him. The guy's name was Victor Cruz.
Yeah.
Like, this is not Victor Cruz. This isn't anybody like that. So I just think it's more of a symptom of all these ideas they were hoping that one of them would pop. Nothing really did. So Tyrell Shavers, danger. It's very possible that we haven't heard the last of them because these players that are out there right now, you can bring back to the practice squad. And I do believe that Sean McDermott likes his work ethic, likes him for special teams. He could be somebody on the practice squad that, all right, every once in a while we'll elevate.
And I should know the answer to this. When is the practice squad made official? When do they have to make that known?
Anytime between tomorrow and week 1. So it's an ongoing thing. So you'll hear like little drips and drabs. It's a land grab for everybody in the NFL.
And you've got some players that are eligible for waivers and some players that aren't. And so this is where it all kind of gets gray and cloudy for a lot of us.
Right. So, well, everybody that is released here, somebody can kind of go and pick up. It's the veterans for the practice squad that
need to clear waivers.
Need to clear waivers, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, Nate Geary is going to stop by as well this afternoon, right around 4:25. We'll talk to Nate, who you can hear on the Buffalo Bills radio network here during the season as we approach week 1 now with cutdowns happening today and the final 53 being announced. We'll get his initial reaction to this roster heading into that week 1 matchup against Arizona. Nate Geary at 4:25.
And, geez, they're a 12 personnel team. We've been talking about this for years, but this has to be the reality now, Danger, that every down your base offense, unless it's 3rd and long, should be Knox and Kincaid. Like Dawson Knox, I want him on the field. You certainly want Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid, is he really a tight end? Is he more wide receiver 3? That's why I think Davidson, you haven't heard any report that he's not making the team. So Davidson, Zach Davidson, many thought, they're going to keep 4 tight ends. Yeah, we'll ask Nate Geary about his opinion there if this team becomes a primary 2 tight end offense.
Other cuts today by the Buffalo Bills. What we've heard, what we know, KJ Hamler has been released by the team, which kind of stings. I like the idea of Hamler latching on as a returner, but they've got their guy in Hardy now who can do that and make the final 53 as a rookie.
Yeah, and you pointed this out, like, he's out there late in the Carolina game. Like, that is never a good sign. No.
Yeah, Gable Steveson.
Oh,
it was a fun story, but that's a guy that they'll bring back on the practice squad. You just know it.
Of course. Why were you wait? Then this was a complete waste of time. Or did you see enough? Or when you actually put him in pads and put him out there, but like, oh my gosh, that guy he actually looks small for the defensive tackle position. Wouldn't it be fun, though? Like if there were Hard Knocks. I remember the Hard Knocks episode where you had Joe Philbin of the Dolphins fumbling around when he's trying to release. What would that be like if the camera was there and Sean McDermott has to tell Gable Steveson that he hasn't
Who's
made the
crying
team?
more, Gable Steveson or Sean McDermott in that scenario?
Oh, that's easy. It's McDermott. It's McDermott.
Just want somebody to break down wrestling film with. And if you're leaving, I can't do that. But we'll get you back here on the practice squad. Not a surprise, right? Eli Anku, again, another guy that has kind of lived on the Bills practice squad, and you would imagine he's been released. He'll probably be a strong candidate for the Bills practice squad. Justin Shorter, wide receiver, released by the team.
Now, how many off-season, hey, what about Justin Shorter, the mystery guy?
2. It's his second year, right? I mean, he was a rookie last year. I remember last year at camp thinking to myself, this guy's an Adonis physically. He looks the part of a big wide receiver. Shorter not able to get anything done. Last year was basically a lost season with IR, and this year at camp, maybe not the same player that they thought they drafted in last year's draft. Tyrell Shavers, we've already discussed. Kareem Jackson, whom they signed in July at safety, has been released from the team. Another guy that maybe is eligible for the practice squad and who's lived on the practice squad the majority of his time with the Bills, that's Syracuse grad Kingsley Jonathan, pass rusher. And, of course, they released Ben DiNucci. Gene, because he's Italian.
Appreciate everybody writing in on X. You can reach us at The Fan Rochester. Peter writing in. What you're experiencing yesterday, Danger, is actually, there's a scientific reason for that, the distribution of variance.
Because I forgot the word variance.
Yeah.
That's good. By the way, with DiNucci, quickly, if Trubisky can't go week 1, you bring DiNucci back to the practice squad. You elevate him for the beginning of the season as your backup quarterback.
Ben DiNucci came here only because the Raiders had signed somebody else. And I'm not talking about Brown, the guy that they released. They released Brown to make room for Nathan Peterman. Peterman today, released by the Raiders.
I know. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. Do you bring Peterman? You don't bring Peterman back. Stop it, Gene. Stop. He doesn't know this offense. No. We've moved on. There were a bunch of other notable cuts from around the league. How about Kadarius Toney?
How is he still there?
How badly did the Giants miss on that guy? Kadarius Toney, released by the Chiefs. Jags quarterback.
The Chiefs gave up a 3rd and a 5th. Now, granted, he made a return in the Super Bowl, so I guess it's worth it. 2 years ago.
Jags moving on from quarterback C.J. Beathard. Desmond Ridder, Cardinals quarterback, also being released by the team.
Wow. He was, to your point yesterday about these guys
just don't have it.
No, that was supposed to be the plan in Atlanta last year.
Former first-round pick of the Titans. Remember Caleb Farley, cornerback?
Yeah, he was the guy from Virginia Tech, right? So physical, but came in hurt.
Can't stay healthy.
We had that debate on the show. Boy, as a corner, too, if he fell to Buffalo, would you do it? Would you do it? Would you do it? And never got himself right.
Carl Lawson, defensive end. He was with the Cowboys. He was released. And it's been a few years, but I remember when he was scheduled to be a free agent, the Jets ended up getting him from the Bengals.
Right, and the Bills were in the mix, as I recall.
And I think that a lot of us thought Carl Lawson with the Bills would have made a lot of sense. He ended up in the Jets. Didn't really do much with the Jets, and has just been released by the Cowboys today. Another notable name at quarterback being released, that's Patriots quarterback Bailey Zappi, released by the team. Couple of Giants wide receivers of note. Allen Robinson. You got to wonder what is next for him, the veteran wide receiver. And a familiar name for Bills fans, Isaiah Hodgins, also released by the Giants today. We mentioned Nathan Peterman is a free agent. We're going to get a lot of names, a lot of noteworthy moves here made, and we'll stand by and await for the announcement of the final 53-man roster officially when it comes from the Buffalo Bills.
Do we get that at 4, a little after 4? I'm guessing no.
I'm going 4:30.
I'm going like 8 o'clock tonight.
Ooh, you think tonight?
The 4 o'clock isn't, hey, here it is. They could do that if they were really nice, but since it is kind of sensitive, maybe that they want to give these guys a chance to tell their loved ones, hey, I didn't make the team or whatever it is, you got to let the league know it's on the waiver wire at 4. Certainly agents. Funny how, too, like how do some of these stories get leaked? Funny how DiNucci was out there coming to the Buffalo Bills before anything happened. And then that was kind of the first cut this morning that, wait a second. Adam Schefter is reporting Ben DiNucci. Do you think Sean McDermott called up Adam Schefter and said Ben DiNucci is getting cut? No. Ben DiNucci has an agent that likes to let everyone know.
Sure. Yeah, but I get the sense that because the Bills have kind of been in front of this and they've been releasing bits and pieces of their roster here.
This is not coming from the Bills. That's what I'm saying. This is coming from the agent. Like, the Bills they made their cuts. Okay, now it's up to the players. Do they want to let people know, or can you get it verified? Anything else? Yeah, I don't think there's any tip line in the Bills that are letting this know. I mean, which I don't know if that's process like, but at this point, how many people are going to be on the wire here tonight?
Yeah, well, hundreds.
Yeah,
hundreds and hundreds of players. One of those players being released by the Texans, wide receiver Noah Brown. Now, we'll have our guest, Nate Geary, tell us why he thinks that this is a player that Brandon Beane should be in business with. Noah Brown, in a crowded wide receiver room in Houston, released, and now out there for teams to look at as well.
Giants letting go Isaiah Hodgins. Took me how many years to get that name correctly, to say it without the D. No.
I feel like we can do better. Yeah, I feel like we could do better. And again, there are names that are exciting because the player associated with it, but you look at the production and you think, or things we don't know, like we don't know what Kadarius Toney is like as a teammate or what he's like in meeting rooms. You see the speed or you see the ability, and you think, there's a book on Kadarius Toney. There's a book on some of these players that are already out there.
I think Giant fans would have an opinion on Kadarius Toney. I think Chief fans have an opinion on Kadarius Toney. There are certainly going to be names, whether it's Martavis Bryant or Allen Robinson or whoever else might be on the wire here, and we'll learn more here before the end of the day. But what will the Bills do at the fifth wide receiver position? I don't think that player's on the roster right now. All right, can I be honest, Danger? Where I said, hey, I don't think I wouldn't have him on the 53, I was actually surprised that the Bills moved on from Shavers.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I thought, all right, they're going to keep the guy. So what does that open up the roster spot for? Who, if you're only going to keep 5 wide receivers here potentially? Maybe even 4 at the open.
I think it's 5. I think that's what they did last year. I think they run 5, and I think it goes back to what you said earlier, which is this is a 12-personnel team. I don't know that they necessarily need more than that, so they'll run with 5, and you'll have your MVS, and you'll have Coleman, you'll have Shakir, you'll have Curtis Samuel.
That's it. So MVS, even though he's not available, will be on this team. I'm assuming he's not going to be ready for week 1.
I think
he's got a chance.
I think he has a chance. Yeah, and I forgot about Mac Hollins in that mix as well. So you have MVS, Mac Hollins, Shakir, Coleman, and Samuel. You're 5. If you run 6, who's that 6? That 6 doesn't exist. I think you could say maybe they bring in a 6th wide receiver, maybe for week 1, maybe if MVS can't go, but that would be like initially here. I think it's 5. I think it'll be 5.
This is the weakest wide receiving core since Josh Allen's rookie year. And I would put this one ahead of that. Zay Jones and
I agree.
Duke Johnson, all those guys.
Yeah, that was
Duke
ugly.
Williams, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Robert Foster.
And you bolstered it up the following year with what?
Brown and Beasley.
That's right.
Hey, look, Beasley got some Pro Bowl votes. He was effective. He did his job. Brown was effective.
Yep. They had a good season. But it wasn't until you saw Diggs that you really saw Josh Allen flourish. There's a lot on Josh Allen's shoulders this year.
Yeah, without question.
If he can elevate, if Curtis Samuel, if Mac Hollins can have a season, then okay, Josh Allen is the guy that can elevate those around him, make those around him better.
For Josh Allen, I know I've heard this from you and from others. It's a boom or bust year for the Buffalo Bills, where you could see them going 6-11. You could see them, oh my gosh, this is way better than I could have imagined. Like, I'll listen to that, but for Josh Allen, I think it's kind of the same thing where, dude, let's just say for Allen in his place in the league. Hear me out, Danger. This is tailor-made for an MVP season. If he can elevate those guys around him, he's going to get the credit.
No question.
It's not going to be Brady. It's not going to be McDermott. It's going to be, wow, Josh Allen really kind of did this. The Bills are winning games without Diggs, and they're doing it different ways. I didn't even know that Mac Hollins could be this guy at wide receiver. It's because of Allen. Can he make these guys better? On the other hand, if it's kind of, we get to Thanksgiving again and we're 500, I mean, would that surprise anybody too? If they're dare I say, they have a losing record in Thanksgiving.
Yeah, how they lose is, I think, important too. They're always competitive. They don't really ever get blown out. But if you start to see some cracks and you start to see the defense not look like a Sean McDermott defense and games get out of hand, then I think there's even more to be concerned about as far as what the future looks like with this team. Maybe the future gets corrected next year when you lose all that dead cap money. I think that there's so much wrong with going into this season thinking that this is a 14-win team or a 13-win team when the roster doesn't dictate that you can get to that many wins because of the dead cap.
If I said the roster, you could be a 12-win team or it could be a 5-win team, Mike Danger, what would be the word for that?
Polarizing? Variance! Oh, variance. Sorry, Gene.
There's a lot of variance.
There is some variance there. Quickly, before we get to Matt Perino, another NFL note that the Hawkeye computer technology that they were going to use to make measurements more accurate for first downs or for spotting the football, it's not going to happen in 2024. The NFL has pulled the plug on that initiative for 2024. They tried it out in the preseason. Famously was clumsy. It took a lot longer than it would have taken just with the chain gang. So we'll get the chain gang again in 2024. And I know what you're saying. This is ridiculous. How can tennis get it right and the NFL can't get it right? How can soccer get it right and the NFL? The NFL, I guess, is a little bit more complicated because you've got players blocking the view of the camera of the ball. And in tennis, you've got the clear view of the ball. In soccer, you oftentimes have the clear view of the ball before.
When did the ball actually go down? If
When's
it's
the knee down?
when it did, all that. Right. So it is a little more complicated, but the technology, if it's not here, it's going to be soon.
They can revisit it next season, and they probably will revisit it next season. It seems a little silly that they can't get it right, but if you saw any of the games where it was used in the preseason, you get it, because it shouldn't take that long to figure out the spot of the ball, whether or not they're short of the line to gain, when you could clearly see, oh, that's short of the line to gain. The technology that exists, the yellow line technology that exists on the TV is more accurate and quicker than what we were, even though it's not official, the yellow line is not official, you know that. Matt Perino covers the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. We're going to get his takes on the final 53 as we get to all these morsels sorted out before the team's official release of their schedule. Matt Perino next on The Fan.
Sports Update.
Some breaking news for the Buffalo Bills is Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, reporting there's been a trade between the Bills and the Jets. Kick returner / defensive back Brandon Codrington goes from the Jets to the Bills. This in exchange for a late-round pick swap. Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, the first to report that the Bills released today wide receiver Tyrell Shavers. Brownie and Tasker giving their thoughts.
I'm kind of just waiting to see where this roster thing falls today, because up until now, I'll admit with Brownie now, we're a little surprised with Shavers and Shorter both hitting the curb, and KJ Hamler.
I would say Shavers is a surprise. Shorter
Right.
is not for me. Because I think
Right.
more and more it's trending towards them keeping only 5 receivers, which could mean 4 tight ends.
KJ Hamler, Ben DiNucci, Gabe Stevenson, amongst the others, reportedly not making the initial 53. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, joining us next. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
All right, let's get the initial reactions on some of the releasing that we've heard from the Buffalo Bills. Some of these players that failed to make the final 53-man roster. Maybe we'll latch on the practice squad. Matt Perino covering the team at Syracuse.com. The Syracuse Post-Standard. I think Shavers is probably the surprise, Matt. Do you think the Bills were kind of inflating the tires on Shavers and increasing his value through the preseason in hopes that they could maybe get something of value in way of a trade before finally ultimately releasing him? Or is he a eternal practice squad guy for this team?
Maybe. I mean, I think all the stuff that they talked about in the spring was real. Like, he was a guy that, had shown up, kind of shown some leadership going into his second year. They trotted him out during rookie camp to kind of show the rookies what's what. And they loved him all through the summer. I mean, we watched him every day at training camp, guys. Like, he was rising up the depth chart. I mean, before long, I think it was 4 or 5 days in, he was running with the first team at times. But the thing is, like, guys, we have to remember in the media, I'm as guilty of it as anybody, there's a bunch of boxes that have to be checked. Like, you gotta check the spring box, you got to check the training camp box, and then you got to check the preseason box. And if we go back and watch those 3 preseason games, he just didn't do enough. And when they have so many other positions where there's flex happening with injuries, guys in, guys out, guys that maybe they don't trust as much, that they got to maybe inflate some numbers elsewhere, or maybe they don't know what they have because they haven't been able to evaluate a position. You mean, look at the safety spot. I mean, they're going to probably end up taking 5 guys, and the big reason for that is they haven't been able to really sink their teeth in and evaluate the rookie Cole Bishop, the new addition Mike Edwards. And so I think that's the big part of it, is they like Shavers a lot, but when it comes down to it, what's the path to a productive role on this team once the regular season starts? He still has quite a ways to go, and they're almost probably more okay with chancing him to the practice squad than losing maybe a Joe Andreessen, who has popped in the preseason, and they've liked throughout the process as well, kind of trending up in his own way. You got to make some of those hard decisions. And then at tight end, we haven't heard definitively on Zach Davidson yet, but if they want to be a 12-personnel team, or they want to build this offense around the tight end position, you have to have some depth there, because Dalton Kincaid got hurt for a game or 2 last year. We know the injury history with Dawson Knox. You have to have some answers. And I'm high on Quentin Morris. I like the player, but I think if you're looking for somebody to fill in for one of those 2 other guys in the passing game, Davidson is probably a better fit.
So we have this trade we can react to here where we don't know what the pick swap is. This is according to Pelissero and the NFL Network, Matt, where the Bills have traded for a corner, Brandon Codrington, but seems more like he's a kick returner. Had a pretty decent game there against Carolina, second preseason game, 63-yard kickoff return, 31-yard punt return. But even in the report I'm reading that he was a long shot to make that Jets roster. That kind of tells you everything you need to know where the Bills thought the return game was heading into this season.
Yeah, and I think if you go back and look at some of the returns this summer on the Bills side, I thought Deontay Hardy had a couple of nice ones. Daquan Hardy, excuse me. The problem is there was a couple questionable decisions that he made at times. Like, I think it was a couple punts where he received them at the 5-yard line. Those are the kinds of decisions, like a rookie player, that could maybe give you a little bit of pause. We don't know, what the final evaluation was on any of these guys. We'll get a chance to talk to Brandon Beane tomorrow. But this is a guy that, I just quickly before I got on here was looking at a couple of the highlights, and he had on a kick return, a really nice return almost to the 30-yard line of the Carolina Panthers in that game. So, I mean, that's an area where, all these teams are looking for competitive advantages in that kick return part, that new kick return rule. And if this is a guy that they think they can plug in and help them get better field position, they're going to do that. And so to me, that's what this feels like. I think it's an exchange of 6-round picks. They basically got him for nothing. They didn't want to risk the waiver process. It makes some sense, and we'll see what they do with Hardy here now. I know that they've already reportedly released KJ Hamler. It already was trending that he wasn't going to win one of those jobs. So we'll see.
Ben DiNucci released by the team, and feels like an annual event here where we discuss the options behind Josh Allen at backup quarterback and what would this team look like, or how would this team perform if the worst case scenario happened. Do you think DiNucci's back on the practice squad for this team, or do you think one of these more notable names that's been released today could end up being is that third string quarterback not on this Bills roster, or potentially hasn't been on this Bills roster since the start of the spring?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of options, right? Like once you get to this part of the year, and I think it comes down to what situation do these guys want to be in. I think playing in Buffalo would be one that a lot of backup quarterbacks could get excited about because they were to get into the game. They'd like the offensive line especially. So I don't know. I think Ben DiNucci did some nice things. That everything that I've heard inside the building has been positive. He's already had a little bit of a head start in the fact that he's gotten, 2 weeks to learn this playbook, which isn't very much of a head start. But if they liked him, I think he's already done some of that work. If Mitch Trubisky isn't going to be ready by the opener, and listen, I think if he really wasn't going to be ready for the opener, they would have been a little bit more aggressive at that spot, outside of going and getting Anthony Brown, which felt like just a stand-in for that last game. So my full expectation is that Trubisky makes his way back. They're invested into him. They like him. He knows the system. He's close with Josh. And to me, that's right or wrong, that seems to be what the Bills value more, is a guy in the room that's going to be helpful for Josh throughout the week, give the opposing team or the defense, their own defense, a good look on scout team. And I feel like Trubisky checks a lot of those boxes.
Matt, as I look here at the wide receivers, and I'm wondering, all right, kind of pointing to, are they keeping actually 4 tight ends? And it seems like that after years of talking about being a 12 personnel team, this might actually be really happening. And when you see James Cook, you have Ray Davis. Is this actually going to be the path here for the Buffalo Bills here, that maybe conservative isn't the right word here, but an offense that's going to look a little more different and taking some shorter yardage situations as opposed to years past?
I mean, yes and no. I don't necessarily think because they want to use 2 tight ends a ton that they're going to be some dramatically shifting into a 12 personnel heavy approach. I still think there's ways you can go about this in personnel packages, even leaning into 11 still. When, you're keeping Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox healthy. I thought we saw a lot of that in training camp. They'd come on, they'd come off. They were out there quite a bit together. I mean, they're definitely going to play more 12 personnel. But I don't know what we're going to see yet. I think the signature of Joe Brady's offense going back to Carolina was been the heavy play action stuff that they like to use to open up things down the field in the passing game. That could mean for Kincaid. That could mean for some of these receivers. I mean, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir in that intermediate area. I am probably in the minority in that I think Keon Coleman is going to be more of a downfield threat than others, based on my conversations I've had with a couple of, my beat members. He hasn't won a ton down the field, but when he does, you see a little bit of a spark into what this could potentially look like. So I don't know. I think that you have Josh Allen. It's almost like a disservice to turn into a run-heavy team because of what he's able to do. Are they going to run more? Are they going to look a lot like they did at the end of last season? Probably. I think that James Cook needs the ball in his hands too, whether it's in the run game or the passing game.
Matt, when we find out who's on this practice squad for the Buffalo Bills. Is there a kicker on the practice squad?
If it was up to me, I'd say yes. But it just seems like the Bills are so worried about the confidence level of Tyler Bass. At least that's my assumption based on how much they've tried to downplay the issue with Bass. And I know a lot of people talked about, like, he's hit 6 for 7 in the preseason games, and he hasn't been great in practice, but he said that that's more about trying things and doing things, and it's okay to mess up in practice, and I get all that. But there's times to try things in practice for me, like watching, like when they're in the field house or on the other field, when the team's running 11 on 11. When they do those specific 11 on 11 field goal drills where they're running the kicker onto the field, like those are game-like scenarios where I'm going to evaluate Tyler Bass the same way I'd evaluate Keon Coleman or Josh Allen or Von Miller or Christian Benford, right? And so I do think that the level of concern I have at kicker right now, and really, like, have we really gotten to the bottom of, like, what's actually going on here? Like, is it the holder? Because the big question this offseason was Sam Martin was in trouble because of his ability to hold. They get rid of the undrafted free agent guy pretty early in the process, and this continued problem has existed still. And so I don't know what the basis of the problems. Does he just have the yips, or is this something that the Bills are going to have to be answering questions about all season long?
Yeah, Matt, I go back to one of our training camp conversations. It was after practice, and we were like, you had mentioned, boy, it just looked different coming off of his foot. And I don't know the answer to this, but when we're talking about positions in sports, that the mental makeup has to be there. And goalie in the NHL would be it. Certainly NFL quarterback, but I would think right at the top of the list would also be a professional place kicker in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, we've seen some kickers over the years just, crumble under that pressure. And when you go out there, I would imagine, again, I'm not a professional kicker. I've never done it. But just from watching the game for as many years as I have, when you go out there and things are going well, you're in a rhythm, it's probably a completely different experience than when you're going out there knowing, okay, there's already a little bit of heat on me here. You're overthinking every little piece of your mechanics and everything you've been working on, and you've got a million things going through your head. That's how it feels like that's the place we feel like we're at right now, I think, with Tyler Bass. And the Bills are going to have to figure that out. And the problem is whether or not they think that it's a huge problem is irrelevant, because contractually they can't get out of it. And that's another reason why, man, getting aggressive on a kicker for me, like, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, I get wanting to give a guy a contract, but I'd almost be more willing to take the running back approach, which is what I've always talked about on our show, is like you try to find a guy in the draft, you develop him, you hope he turns into something, but at the end of that rookie contract, you turn it over again. I think that I love the Ray Davis pick just because of that. And I'm not saying that James Cook isn't going to be a member of this team in 3 years. I'm saying give yourself those options so you're not hamstrung and having to pay a guy. Like, I think going back into the draft and drafting the kicker again, if Tyler Bass wanted too much money, I just think that you bank on your coach's ability to develop those guys just like they developed the guy before. And it protects you when you're paying a quarterback like you're paying Josh Allen from running into a salary cap issue with a kicker.
Yeah, so basically, is Tyler Bass on this roster right now, Matt, because, well, the Bills can't afford to cut him?
He's running unopposed competition-wise because of the contract.
What about Frank Gore Jr.? We'll always have week 3 of the preseason to remember the Frank Gore Jr. game. They've waived him, but do you think it's likely he ends up on the practice squad? Do you think another team will see what he did against Carolina and say, oh, yeah, we want that guy on our roster?
I love the preseason, and mostly just because of the dramatic overreactions that we see so often. We got to make sure that we're looking at things and talking about things in their proper context. And Frank Gore Jr., such a cool story to run for 100-plus yards in a preseason game, big opportunity. He was doing it against mostly third stringers that are all going to be looking for a job today. So that's the part of it that I think you got to take the whole body of work. He's really, I think, trended upwards since rookie minicamp. I was really kind of down on him during rookie minicamp, and I thought we got to the summer, and slowly but surely over the course of practice, he started to look more comfortable. The drops weren't as prevalent. Like there was times in the spring and early summer where he was dropping balls in like routes versus air in the individual period. And he just got much more confident as time went, and he's got the bloodlines. I mean, obviously there's excitement about the fact that he's Frank Gore's son, and we all know what he did in the league. But I think practice squad for him is the perfect place as an undrafted free agent to be able to develop him a little bit. You get another look at him next summer and see if there's some real juice there. I mean, there's some running backs that are going to cut today that I think I'd probably take over Frank Gore Jr. There haven't been any specifically that I've seen yet. I think there was one. Who was the one in Denver? Was there a cut in Denver?
P. Ryan.
P. Ryan, right.
Yeah,
like this
P. Ryan.
Couple of those kind of like 6, 7, 8 year vets that I think like probably fall more into the Latavius Murray role where I feel like they'd just be much more trustworthy at this point.
Matt, I'm going to jump ahead here because the next time we'll talk to you, we're going to be full-on week 1 preparation, and I don't think it's too early now to start thinking about what that's going to look like, Bills in Arizona on September the 8th. And if I'm coming up with reasons in my mind how the Bills could stub their toe in this game, it's really the unknown of Marvin Harrison Jr. Like the promise of this guy, we saw a little bit, but who really knows? My question is about who's going to be defending him, whether that's Rasul Douglas or Christian Benford, or do they flip the corners? We won't know. But my question to you is the starting corners for the Buffalo Bills. What type of camp, what type of preseason would you say Benford and Rasul Douglas had?
I think Rasul Douglas is going to get a big piece of that matchup, and I know Keon Coleman isn't in the Marvin Harrison tier, so I would expect that Harrison would be a challenge. But, man, the other day in practice, Douglas absolutely shut down Coleman, so much so that he was chirping in his ear about it. Real frustrated Coleman had to come back a couple plays later against Kyer Elam, and he won. He got it back, and he chirped himself a little bit. But if you're looking for a guy that at this point in his career where Rasul Douglas is as an 8-year vet, I mean, I'm giving him that assignment. I like Christian Benford to be feisty and compete in that assignment as well. But if we're talking about one-on-one, ball skills, physicality, all the traits, the quickness, everything like that, I think Rasul Douglas gets that matchup.
All right, we want to get your take on this. The Bills actually releasing the final 53-man roster. I say 4:30. Gene says later.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, Gene's saying later tonight. What say you, Matt Perino?
Well, that's tough because they do seem to kind of operate at their own schedule there. But I will say I think that they're a little bit ahead of the curve only because of how much more we've seen coming out this morning. The fact that they got started on the cuts, I don't feel like we heard as much at this point last year. So I'm going to say they're going to be pretty close to 4. I think they'll be before 4:30.
Before 4:30.
Before 4:30.
Okay,
wow.
So I got 4:30. Matt took the under.
We bet on everything on this show, Matt. You know, that's what
we're degenerates.
Absolutely. I respect that, actually. And you want to know how big of a degenerate I am when it comes to gambling? I don't do it very often. But we were at we went to the Pirates game when we were in Pittsburgh for the preseason, and I was betting pitch speeds and ball or strike every single pitch. Like you could do that in the apps, which I think is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like this. It's like the baseball or sports version of like roulette, right? Like you're just betting red or black every single time.
Right.
But I could see that going south in a hurry. It went well for me. People were like, dude, like, what are you doing over there? Why are you cheering so much for every pitch? And I'm like, don't worry about it.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout Podcast. When does the next Shout Pod drop here, Matt, as we're heading to a holiday weekend as well?
We'll have our full reaction show tonight once those final cuts are distributed from the Bills, hopefully before 4:30, so I can come back next week and gloat. And then we'll be live Saturday at Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway in Amherst, right off the thruway.
The number is 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, Matt. I mention it often here on the Fan Rochester. You can also text Hope NY. That's 467-369. Betting balls and strikes. Yeah, that you.
The question, I have many questions here, Matt, but sometimes I know Miss P, might be listening here. I mean, she doesn't know about that, does she?
Oh, she knows about it. She has no problems with it. You know why? I don't think I've ever put in on a single day more than $20 into one of those apps.
That's right.
So I was betting 50 cents, guys, for every ball, every strike. And as soon as I go under $10, I'm out. I'm done for the day.
That's discipline.
But we got up pretty high. I got up to almost $200. Like we were feeling it. I was reading that picture like you wouldn't believe.
Now that's a way I'm going to have to enjoy Major League Baseball moving forward. If I wasn't north of the border last Monday for the Blue Jays game, and I don't think I'm able to bet on FanDuel north of the border. I think I have to be in the state where, you know what I'm saying? But, a new way to enjoy Major League Baseball on site, courtesy of our friend Matt Perino. Buddy, enjoy the rest of your week. Let's talk again on Tuesday.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, thanks,
Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, Syracuse.com, and the Shout podcast as well. We wait for the final 53-man projection, and if Perino has its way, it'll happen here in the next half hour or so.
So this counts, actually. Brandon Codrington, this goes to the you said 2, I said 3. How many guys are on other NFL rosters that'll be on the Bills' initial 53?
Yeah, weird. I didn't expect it to come via trade. I thought it would
From
just
the
be
Jets of all teams.
I thought it would just be let's pluck this guy who got released by a team.
Here's the question I have. Like, I get it from you're a Jet fan? Why are you helping the Bills? Let Brandon Codrington go to waivers, and maybe you get him back on the practice for what? A 6th-round pick swap? Who cares? Unless you really don't think anything of Brandon Codrington, you're like, okay, Buffalo, you take him. Ha, ha, ha.
You're right. That's the only thing. What kind of a guy is he? What kind of a locker room guy is he? Is he a disruptor in the locker room? Is he going to be somebody that just doesn't get along with anybody?
He's somebody who was not only usually the street free agents, they get snapped up right away, but because he went to this small HBCU school, undrafted in May, and then he shows a little speed, and he's got the highlight that the film from the preseason. That's why
it's impressive.
Bills made this move.
Yeah. Okay. So to answer your question, why would you help the Bills? I don't know. And maybe they don't really realize that maybe they aren't helping the Bills. Maybe this is a guy that's going to be behind Hardy, and Hardy is actually the guy, and you just need somebody else, since you're moving on from Hamler, that can be back there to field punts and kicks.
It's an encouraging sign, though, from this standpoint, Danger. Maybe the Bills actually are taking this kickoff rule a little more seriously.
Well, yes.
We need
the thing that I don't like is that they're being reactive instead of proactive. Oh, look at that guy. He's got it figured out. Let's get him. Instead of saying, here's what we want to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and here's the personnel we're going to get to do it. Maybe Codrington is that missing piece, but I think that they're still going to use Hardy, even though Hardy, doesn't inspire a lot of confidence when he's fielding punts at the 5-yard line.
It's kind of surprising that they make this move and not keep KJ Hamler. That's another kind of piece of this too. Like, oh, wait a second, they released all these receivers. Hamler did make the team. No, he didn't. No, he did not.
Well, we'll hopefully get the final 53-man roster announcement here while we're on the air this afternoon. We'll keep you posted on that. We've got more on the way next, and we will also check in with Nate Geary. Nate Geary, the Buffalo Bills radio network, will be stopping by the sports bar here in about a half an hour or so. We'll get his reaction to some of these cuts made, not just by the Buffalo Bills, but around the NFL, and there might be some more opportunities for the Bills to add players that haven't been on their roster to date, as we just saw with the trade of Codrington from the Jets to the Bills. More on the way, plus your calls at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Final cut down. The deadline has passed. Nothing official from the Buffalo Bills yet, but here's what we can tell you. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, reporting the Bills have made a trade with the Jets. Kick returner and defensive back Brandon Codrington going from the Jets to the Bills is for a late-round pick swap. Wide receiver Tyrell Shavers, KJ Hamler, Justin Shorter, Ben DiNucci, Gabe Stevenson, amongst the others, who have not made the initial 53. Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, reporting that linebacker Joe Andreessen indeed has made the Bills. Nate Geary, Buffalo Bills Radio Network, joins us later this hour. Around the league, the Chiefs parting ways with wide receiver Kadarius Toney. The Titans move on from former first-round pick corner Caleb Farley. Rochester Red Wings tonight open a 6-game series at Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
All right, here we are on Cut Down Day. As names are trickling out according to reports, we'll wait until the official list comes out at 4 p.m. this afternoon for full roster cuts.
Mike Danger.
How you feeling after everything that we've seen so far this summer? That's the question.
How you feeling? You're excited for football?
Yeah? Are you excited for this team? Are you excited about what 2024 could look like for the Buffalo Bills?
Gene Battaglia.
Can I frame it a different way? I'm going to frame it this way. Where would this Bills team be without Josh Allen? It's not a first-place team. It's not a winning team.
They're picking in the top 10.
Picking in the top 5.
Yeah, probably.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Somewhere in Hollywood, there's a writer, a producer licking their chops. They've already got the treatment. They're writing. Buffalo Joe will be in theaters somewhere in the near future as the legend of Joe Andreessen continues. Multiple reports, as you mentioned, he's making the final 53.
All right, so you're the script writer. How do you write the script for Joe Andreessen? He makes the big play in the Super Bowl, and it's actually the guy from, where is it, Lancaster, that actually helps the Bills win the Super Bowl? Or,
That's right.
Or he never makes the field and he's let go 2 weeks later. I don't know how the story will end.
We don't know how it will end, but we know up to this point that the unlikely path to the final 53, Joe Andreessen, we're getting multiple reports now that he has made this Buffalo Bills roster. As we welcome you back into the sports bar, we appreciate you stopping by. Thanks for listening or watching, however you may be doing so, in the free-to-download Odyssey app, your smart device, when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. Also on YouTube, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, and Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. While Andreessen has made the final 53, plenty of players yet to make the final 53, and we know of some that have not made the final 53. Still have not heard anything on tight end Zach Davidson. I think that's one that's interesting, because if you keep 4 tight ends, you're making your intentions fairly well known.
Yeah, and I would make the argument that you saw enough from Davidson in camp, and certainly makes that play in the Steeler game, like Matt Perino talking about checking the boxes, meaning spring, summer camp, preseason. Well,
great catch against the Carolina Panthers, too.
Right, that too. So another note we got to pass on because of this trade, and you're scratching your head like, why? What's this all about? We mentioned the update, Bills and Jets. So the Bills have a new kick returner. He's a defensive back as well. Brandon Codrington is his name. Was an undrafted rookie free agent. The Jets signed in May. Had a few nice returns for the Jets. Put enough on film. This kind of went under the radar, but the returner Hardy was hurt, actually. So Daquan Hardy wasn't going to be ready. Joe Marino and others reporting that he actually went into the X-ray room late after the reporters had left there, following the Panthers preseason game. So that's probably the primary reason why this was done, Danger, is that for Hardy, who has made this team, and you would have to assume here, but he might not be ready week 1 here.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think because they invested in him via draft capital, that you'll see Hardy make this team, and now the move to make that trade for Codrington makes a little bit more sense when you kind of scratch your head and wonder, like, why wouldn't you have somebody back there you're familiar with? you had a nice preseason, and maybe you just didn't like what you saw out of KJ Hamler. I mean, let's not forget he put one on the turf returning in week 1 of the preseason. Maybe that was the kiss of death, and KJ Hamler's fate, I think, was sealed when you saw him late in the fourth quarter of Saturday's game against Carolina. So KJ Hamler, one of the casualties as we wait for the Buffalo Bills to make an official announcement on their final 53-man roster.
From North Carolina Central University, right in Codrington. Third in Division I overall in punt return yardage. Okay.
I mentioned yesterday my concerns going into this season with the Bills roster, what this roster looks like on paper compared to their competitors in the division. And, Gina, it's funny, this is a conversation that we're going to continue to have up until we actually start to see meaningful football games.
Yeah, and who was it? It was Bruce Nolan who pointed this out, that because the NFL has this cycle to it, whatever we're talking about today, and then you have the Cardinal game, and whatever the result and the issues are, well, the issues will be talking about that leading into the short week here.
It's impossible to learn anything because
Right.
you're constantly being fed new information.
New information, and we're always on to the next thing. So when we're trying to look big picture, this is the time to look big picture, and there's going to be ups. There's going to be some exciting wins. You're like, yeah, I knew this team. There's going to be some, I can't believe they had 12 men on the field games, or the Jacksonville loss. I mean, yes, the Bills don't get blown out, but how many games could we just roll out there and say, oh, my God, that was absolutely gross? So, Danger, what I hear you, but if I'm just doing the comparison right now, and I'm going to, this is my new phrase here, I'm going to frame it another way here for you, right?
All right.
What instead of the AFC East, the Bills played in another AFC division?
Got it.
Would you like their chances in that
Of
division?
winning the division.
Correct. They don't win the AFC West. Can we agree on that?
Nope, the Chiefs are getting by.
I don't feel too confident about the AFC North.
They're not winning that division.
No.
Too physical, no chance.
I think they'd probably be third in that division. Here's the one I'm kind of debating. The AFC South. Would the Buffalo Bills in that division be the top team?
Jacksonville beat them fairly soundly last year, and Jacksonville didn't win that division. The Houston game is something that, I mean, for the obvious narratives that exist around Stephon Diggs being with the Texans, that's to me, that's a measuring stick game for both teams. If you're the Bills and you want to shut people up about this season, if it doesn't start off well for you, beat Houston, and people will start to take note of you. And if you're the Houston Texans, you claim the spot that everybody has given to Buffalo here the last few years. Like, oh, they're a playoff team.
It's strange because I look at that 3-game schedule, right? That you go to Baltimore on Sunday Night Football, Sunday 1 o'clock at Houston, Monday Night Football, the Jets. And if you had to ask which one's the most important one, well, duh, it's the divisional one. I'm thinking, okay, we saw that movie last year. Okay, and the Jets, by the time they're going to have W's under there, that's their measuring stick game. They're going to be so sky high for that game. I don't think they're the favorite in the AFC South, which brings me to the AFC East. And look, I'm not backing off my prediction, Danger, and I'm not Mr. Pom-Pom, yay, Bills, go, but I still think Robert Saleh can't manage men like Sean McDermott can.
Okay.
I don't think Miami's defense is this a fair argument? Until Miami actually does it, I'm not going to put any stock into it. This is still the Bills' division. It's just not going to be this pleasurable ride for Bills fans. It's going to be exhausting this year.
So how is it going to feel this year versus last year? Because I would say last year wasn't very pleasurable through the course of the regular season. And you make the argument that this year's roster is less talented than last year's roster. So you actually need more discomfort than you had last year through the regular season in order to win just the division this year during the regular season.
Yeah, I'm laying out a scenario where, the Bills don't get any breaks. They don't? Like, yeah, the Jets are better. Sure, the Dolphins are better, but there are good teams in this. Of the 4 divisions, I think the Bills, the best chances of the AFC East. kind of a strange what-if game, but I'm just painting you a scenario.
I get that.
They're in a good spot here, Danger, to at least get the 4 seed, see what happens.
I still can't. I can't get myself just looking on paper. I'll preface everything by saying on paper, when you look at the rosters of the 3 teams in the AFC East that we're going to be talking about this year, I think the Bills have the 3rd best roster on paper. You could say better coach. Yes, I'll listen to that. You could say best quarterback. Yes, I'll listen to that as well. But overall talent-wise, I think the Bills roster, and we'll get word on what the final 53 looks like. It's not going to change that much from how I felt yesterday to today. I worry about the level of talent on this roster going into the season.
Our phone number, 866-4326, 866-4FAN, one of our favorites. Brad in Rochester. What's up, Brad?
Hey, dude.
Hey, I think the biggest thing that you guys are looking over is that the Bills have the best offensive line in the division. They will keep Josh a little more cleaner than, say, Tua or Rodgers or whoever New England rolls out. And we have the 2nd best defensive line, so we can actually stop some of these teams in the AFC East. And I don't trust Rodgers for being healthy. I don't trust Tua as soon as it drops below 40 degrees. And New England, they're rebuilding.
Yeah, funny how, we didn't even bring up
no point in it. I mean, they're going to start Drake May week 1. Let the circus begin. Just go out there and break another quarterback. I'll say this, Brad, and I appreciate the call, and you're welcome to join us at 866-4326. Yeah, I think the Bills probably do have the best offensive line, but I'm not as confident about the offensive line this year than I was last year.
Well, I don't think it's a confidence issue. I think was the Bills' offensive line better last year? Or is it better? How could it not be better this year? Mitch Morse isn't on the team. When you're going over people, Diggs, and Porter and Hyde and Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse was the rock in that offensive line. The reason he wasn't here is because of the cap. Now, did Brandon Beane want him back at a lower number? I'm sure that would prompt conversation, but Mitch Morse wants to make money. That's why he's in Jacksonville. I can't fault him. No Bills fan can fault him. The Bills were also very fortunate last year when it came to the injury bug,
Correct.
which wasn't there. The Jets' offensive line is improved. Okay, it's not this sieve that was in years past. I don't know what to make of the Dolphins. And again, sorry, Patriot fans. We've waited decades for just saying you're not relevant. Go back, come back another year.
Yeah, I think that to expect the Bills' offensive line to have the fortune of starting every game the way they did last year without any injury, I think that's asking an awful lot. You do have a very good offensive line coach in Aaron Kromer. He might be the best in the league. So you have that going for you, and you can feel confident about their ability to adjust with McGovern moving to center and Edwards getting plugged in there. But I think that it's silly to think that they're going to go through the entire season unscathed from an injury standpoint the way they did last year. I think that was an anomaly. So I'm a little concerned about that, but I'll listen to the fact that the Bills have the best offensive line. We'll see. Josh Allen does do a lot of running, and a lot of times he does a lot of running because the protection doesn't hold up as much as it should. He can mask a lot of warts. Let's talk another Week 1 game while we have a second.
We got to get caught up because some days we get to this, some days we don't. And Dandalorian, this is for you, buddy. Vikings-Giants. Okay, this is not anybody's. Oh, my gosh, I can't wait for this game. They all can't be great, Danger. I'm sorry. They're all not going to be Baltimore, Kansas City we're picking here. Did you know the Giants' win total this year is only 6.5? And even that seems too high. Am I wrong in saying that? 6.5 for the Giants seems too high. And if you're thinking, well, no, Gene, Vegas has this pick. All right. Well, if you're thinking over, then, well, Giants at home against the Vikings. This is a game that the Giants have to have. This has to be one of the 7. Well, let's take a look at Minnesota last year. When Minnesota faces bad offenses last year, bottom 7 of the league, that was 3 times. The Vikings defense did okay. Average of 13 points per game. The Giants are favored by 1 here, which I would ask why. Did you not see Daniel Jones in the preseason? Dandalorian will not be happy with me. I'm picking the Vikings in this game.
Same. I know our bold prediction show is coming up on Tuesday, a week from today. I'll just tell you right now, one of my bold predictions, New York Giants are going to have the worst record in the NFL.
Whoa! That's bold.
I said what I said.
Wow.
I have zero confidence in the New York Giants. And maybe I'm tainted by what has crossed my feed from off-season Hard Knocks. They look incompetent. And I hate saying that because we all like Brian Daboll. I think that he's in over his head. I think Joe Shane might be in a little over his head. I think that the Mara family is a little overbearing, and they moved on from some critical pieces. I don't see a lot of talent on that roster. I think that division is going to eat them alive. I think the New York Giants will have the worst record in football this season and will be picking first in the NFL draft.
You're not buying stock in Devin Singletary? And no. That's why, I'm looking at 6.5. What are you seeing? Okay, they have two good defensive ends. What else do they got? What do they have at wideout? What playmakers do they have on this team?
The line disappoints every year.
Yeah,
they can't protect. They can't do anything.
And you've had opportunities to draft quarterbacks and still trotting out Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, tough spot for them to inherit, right? When Shane and Daboll get there and you have this decision to make about Saquon, you have this decision to make about Daniel Jones. I guess I can't really fault them for doing what they did, except he's just not the guy. He's just not good.
Well, I told Dan DeLorean, I'm going to pick this game. What do you think Dan DeLorean said, Danger? No, the Giants are going to, no. Have you seen the Vikings? No, the Vikings aren't going to win this game. Okay, that tells me that the Vikings will win the game.
Yes. And Dan DeLorean was on vacation when I had my Sam Darnold rant. This is the best opportunity that Sam Darnold has ever had as a pro to be a success in the NFL. And I think he's going to step up. I'm not going to say he's going to win the MVP. I'm not going to say that the Vikings are a playoff team. I'm going to say that Sam Darnold's going to be respectable with a coach that can scheme receivers open, with an offensive line that can protect him, and with a franchise and organization that isn't 100% dysfunctional like Carolina was for Sam Darnold, like the Jets were when they drafted him.
Yeah, and to the credit there of the Shanahan, the head coach in San Francisco, he recognized, oh my gosh, we actually have something in Brock Purdy. We're going with Brock Purdy.
And Brock Purdy's his guy.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold wasn't the guy that he drafted. He drafted Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant. That's his guy. He likes him. So I actually don't think things are as bad in Minnesota as I certainly know Viking fans are down bad. Dan DeLorean is down bad on his team. And I get it, but I don't think it's a bad situation for Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold could actually turn some heads. And you gain that confidence and that momentum by beating an inferior opponent. And I think, again, talent-wise, I think the Giants are an inferior opponent to what Minnesota's going to try out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Giant fans. I can't really push back on Giants with the worst record on Dangerous Take there. Bold predictions coming up Tuesday.
Can't wait. We'll have more of them. But yeah, that was one that it just kind of hit me as I can't remember which clip it was from off-season Hard Knocks, but I'm like, man, they are really making Joe Shane and Brian Daboll look like a couple of boobs. What are they doing to these guys? And we saw a little bit of what Daboll was last year on the sidelines when he was chewing out Tyrod, and I'm like, you can't do that, man. You got to be. You're the head coach. You got to be presidential.
You can do that.
Not
in front of the cameras. You have to have that self-awareness.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a good play by Tyrod. That's not what the situation called for. But in that instance, you cannot show up your quarterback, even though that was the backup quarterback.
Yeah, didn't like it. Just like I didn't like Shanahan showing up Russell Wilson. But these are the things that happen on the sideline, and when they happen, and we all get to see it, inevitably, it's bad. It ends up poorly. It ends up bad for one or two of the parties. And Russell Wilson's in Pittsburgh now. Brian Daboll's still the head coach. I just don't think for much longer. I think this is going to be a really, really bad season for the New York Giants.
You know what, Danger,
Oh, Coach.
I think your co-host. Why don't you? He's heading into a long weekend.
Coach.
Could use a box of wine.
Coach,
why don't you just pay up your bet
Coach,
right now?
I really
I'm
think you've done a great job as a media professional in your short time off of the sidelines, and I don't see any reason why you should give up any of it. I mean, you're doing a great job explaining what it's like to be not just an NFL head coach, but an NFL GM. You're making the rounds. Keep it up, Coach. Well done.
Well, let me introduce you to Jordan here. Jordan, this is my
another reason, Coach, why you should probably just say, life is pretty good when I'm not pacing up and down an NFL sideline. Oh, by the way, that new rule that gets you into the NFL Hall of Fame a year after you're done coaching, man, that's in sight. You could be in the Hall by 2026, Coach.
All right, can I pull you aside here? Can I pull you aside, Danger?
Sure, Coach.
Let me tell you what's going on with Jordan. I can't lose her. She has expensive taste, and she wants to live in Park Ave in New York City. Nantucket is one thing,
listen
but
to you.
I can.
But you can explore Nantucket. I don't know that you can explore the Big Apple. Ooh, if he ends up in New York, we're gonna have to change our glossary term. Nantucket becomes the Big Apple. Yeah, nobody can explore the Big Apple the way Bill Belichick explores the Big Apple. That's why you've got a 24-year-old ex-supermodel, ex-beauty pageant.
What do you think the tabloids... No, I'm asking seriously. I hear what you're saying about the Giants, and where are they going to clamor for? What does the Giant fan base for? The Giants won 2 Super Bowls with Tom Coughlin. Yet if you ask any Giant fan, Parcells. Honestly, they're going to go back to yesterday.
I don't know. I think there's a portion of the fan base that would say yes, and I think there's another portion that would say, go get Ben Johnson and get somebody that can actually be innovative moving forward and not rely on what somebody has done in the past, but what they can actually do in the future. That's what I would be clamoring for if I was a Giants fan looking for a new head coach. Nate Gary of the Buffalo Bills Radio Network stops by the sports bar next. It's 4:24. Have we heard anything yet from the Buffalo Bills officially?
Yet.
All right. I hate when you're right, Gene. You might be right here. It might be later tonight that we actually get the final 53-man roster officially, but we'll get Nate Gary's thoughts on what we do know about this roster up to this point next on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening update.
The official word from the Buffalo Bills on who made the team, but here's what we can tell you. The Bills have made a trade with the Jets. Kick returner / defensive back Brendan Codrington goes from the Jets to the Bills as for a late-round pick swap. Amongst those who did not make the team, reportedly, Tyrell Shavers, KJ Hamler, Justin Shorter, Ben DiNucci, Gabe Stevenson. Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, reporting that linebacker Joe Andreessen indeed has made the final 53 for the Bills. We'll get the thoughts from Nate Geary, Buffalo Bills Radio Network. He's coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Chiefs parting ways with wide receiver Kadarius Toney. The Titans moving on from former first-round pick corner Caleb Farley. Rochester Red Wings tonight open a 6-game series there at Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You hear him on WGR, our Odyssey Sports sister station, and the Buffalo Bills Radio Network. Nate Geary stopping by the Sports Bar on Cutdown Day for the Buffalo Bills, Nate. And we had a friendly wager happening here in the Sports Bar trying to determine how many players not on the Bills roster will they have on their roster after the final 53. And it seems like Codrington would be one via the trade. How many players do you think they actually add that they haven't had all spring and summer here as they get ready for Arizona on week 1?
So Sal Capaccio and I handicapped this at the over-under being 2.5. So it looks like if you and I think Sale took the over. So by that mark, they'd need to
2 more.
Trade for 2 more. Will it happen? I don't know. I'm a little surprised about the DB/kick returner. It seems like perhaps he was very adamant that this was not a report by him. He wasn't breaking this news, but Joe Marino of the Locked On Bills podcast seemed to think that the move was indicative of a secondary move, which might put Daquan Hardy on IR. I didn't see a report of an injury. I was fairly certain he had left the final preseason game healthy, but it seemed like he had locked that job up. And on top of that, I thought he'd played really well, both in the slot, which is sort of what he had been shoehorned into coming out of college out of Penn State, is that he was going to be kind of strictly a nickel guy, a slot guy, and they were cross-training him. He was playing on the boundary during games and during training camp and looked pretty darn good doing it. So to me, the only real explanation that makes sense is that he is injured. So we'll see if that is ultimately one of the corresponding moves, is putting him on IR with the potential designation to return, or if he simply, just wasn't the guy that they wanted to give the job to and they found someone else elsewhere. So we'll see what that looks like over the next little while. But that was, I guess, a bit of a surprising move for me.
Yeah, as we were waiting the official word, but it seems like right now, Nate, that there are only 5 wide receivers on this roster, and one of them being MVS, and we don't know the status, certainly, of Valdez-Scantling for week 1. So just your level of surprise that not only the KJ Hamler, and I thought maybe Hamler would have been kind of the backup returnee there, but he's gone. Tyrell Shavers didn't make the team. Justin Shorter. None of these ideas really worked here for the Buffalo Bills in terms of making the final 53.
Yeah, I would tell you, I think it's probably a precursor that both Samuel, or at least that they're confident Samuel and MVS will both be available week 1. A little surprised that they don't have a receiver on the roster of the 5 they currently have that really offers special teams ability. Certainly not going to be MVS, maybe Matt Collins, but I expect Matt Collins to be playing quite a bit. And if he's playing quite a bit, we know Sean McDermott historically does not like to overload guys with a role, or at least significant role, on the offensive side of the ball. That will also be a primary special teams contributor. So I don't know. 5 seems light, but it's what they started the season last year with, and had Andy Isabella be their, kind of guy off the bench, off the practice squad when needed. He could be that guy again. Maybe they'll bring back KJ Hamler in a practice squad role, and it'll be his job. But a guy like Noah Brown gets waived today by the Houston Texans. There's going to likely be some more names that get waived today at the wide receiver position. I just would be very shocked if they went into the season not making a move. And I had a lot of people text me today, buddies, what's going on? Are the Bills going to trade for a receiver? Are they going to pick up a receiver? What's going on? They can't possibly go in with this group of receivers. And although I would say that I agree, I think that it's very possible the Bills are more confident with their group of receivers than the general consensus of the fan base is. And this wouldn't be the first time, the organization has differing opinions than the fan base on certain position groups. And, they seem to know what they're doing, right? I mean, they get paid the big bucks for a reason. But I got to tell you, it's not that I'm concerned necessarily, but I guess maybe I'm a little concerned that there doesn't seem to be the same level of desperation or at least level of concern at the wide receiver position that I think is warranted. This is not a group that inspires or instills a lot of confidence, largely because, you can say you like Matt Collins. I like Matt Collins. But what evidence do you have that he's a guy that can really, week in and week out, be a big-time contributor for you? And you might respond and say, Nate, they don't need a big-time contributor. And I'm going to say, in what world do they not need big-time contributors? They just don't have them at the wide receiver position. A lot of guys that, in Curtis Samuel's case, done it one time. And yes, there was, it happened to be Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. So, obviously that instills some confidence. We'll see on Keon Coleman. But, yeah, and Khalil Shakir certainly had an elevated role in the second half of last season, and the efficiency numbers there, but that's not a guy that was getting 10-plus targets a game. So, yeah, I mean, I've got some concern that there doesn't necessarily seem to be this concern of, we are going to flip over every single rock for an opportunity to get better. If we can get better, then we will, even if it's adding a sixth receiver or saying we like him better than MVS. I don't think they're going to move off of Matt Collins. They like him, and I don't think they should move off of Matt Collins, but I don't think they should be afraid to get better than MVS. And frankly, Noah Brown to me is a no-brainer. That guy is, to me, taking MVS's job every day of the week. And I'm not sure. And we might know, we don't know. Maybe they'll make that move in the next 20 minutes and it all will be, forgotten. And guys, does Noah Brown make you feel a lot better about where they are at the wide receiver position? I mean, no. But it feels like at least a marginal upgrade, which is, I think at this point, what anyone's looking for is just some level of awareness that we could be better here.
I think Matt Collins does play special teams for this team. He probably is like a special teams captain if I'm projecting it out, Nate. And I wonder to myself, if they do only keep 5 at wide receiver, what are they doing at tight end? Are they going to bring 4 tight ends in? Do you like what you see out of Zach Davidson this preseason? And could they be tipping their head a little bit here that it's going to be more 12 personnel than certainly we've seen ever by this Bills team?
I would not really like the move at all to go with 4 tight ends. I thought Trey McKitty had a pretty good preseason as well. But I'm not. You can say you want to run more 12 personnel, but that's just not how modern day rosters are built right now. I mean, that would be a concern for me. That would be maybe a move or a decision that would make me feel that they are dramatically shifting away from the wide receiver position in a league that is dramatically shifting towards it. You know what I'm saying? Zigging while everyone else is zagging. And sometimes that can be the smart move. You're bracing for the shift that eventually will happen in the NFL, which if wide receiver contracts start eclipsing $40 million a year, I could absolutely see a world where teams just start saying, you know what? We're going to draft them, and then they're walking in free agency. Or we're going to go to the bargain bin and try to find guys, the Curtis Samuels of the world. But, man, I don't know that is a philosophy rooted in reality. And it would certainly concern me if the Bills walked into this season thinking that they could get away with 4 tight ends and 5 wide receivers on a modern NFL offense with Josh Allen being the quarterback. It would feel a little out of touch.
Yeah, Nate, I've never questioned the Bills about, hey, writing a check or moving on from a contract. I always think that they're going to put wins above everything else, but I'm questioning this for the first time. $7.3 million for Tyler Bass. If that number, that dead cap figure, were there, would the Buffalo Bills today have a different kicker?
Very likely. I think the signs were there before the Chiefs game last year. And the thing with kickers you have to kind of realize is they can be great until they're not. And it can be quick, and they can sometimes never find it again. And, I mean, I think of Stephen Hauschka, right? Now, there was an injury there, but he fell off a cliff himself. I mean, he was at one point a top 5, top 7 kicker in football until he wasn't. And Tyler Bass was looking like a top 3, top 4, top 5 kicker in football until he wasn't. So it's, to me, a concern in that. How about this? Let me flip the script a little on this conversation about Tyler Bass, because what it might force Sean McDermott to do is be even more aggressive than he's been the last couple of years. If your confidence, I think their confidence in Tyler Bass had been at points a crippling confidence in that this is a 56, a 55, 54 yarder on 4th and 3, kick the field goal. And maybe now that confidence changes the way that they approach those situations, having Josh Allen at quarterback. So let me view it, try to spin it in a way that is maybe positive, but also recognizing that I have real doubts that Tyler Bass is going to find the confidence that he had.
Dude, I hear what you're saying. I think McDermott punts. That would be my fear.
God. Yeah, you know, that's a classic oversight by me right there, and that's why you guys get paid the big bucks. I mean, come on,
Nate. Someday the movie. I think the Hollywood execs are licking their chops already. The title of the movie is Buffalo Joe. I mean, you can just throw it out there and go ahead. It's ready. I mean, all reports are that he's making the final 53-man roster. But can we all just admit that if Joe Andreessen is playing meaningful snaps at this season, something has gone really, really badly. Like Joe Andreessen maybe is a little bit better than what you had in A.J. Klein on speed dial last year. What are your thoughts on this thin linebacking core with Milano missing time?
Yeah, it's a great story, but it's not a charity case. He earned the right to be on the team, and I think part of this conversation is if they expose him to waivers, he is getting picked up by another NFL team instantaneously. And for me, you just don't know what you have in Balin Spector. Nick Morrow, I don't know. I think that it makes a lot of sense because of the upside that you saw very clearly in game situations. He made himself a lot of money in that preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's put it the way that it is. I called games of his in high school when I was working on TV, and I remember Joe Andreessen. It's not like one of those things where, hey, I called games and hey, I called a lot of games and I don't remember everybody. I mean, he was running Wildcat quarterback in high school. He was Lancaster, who went to the state championship that year. They might have even won the state championship that year. He was the best player on the best team in the state. And obviously goes to a smaller Division I college and then gets the opportunity at the University of Buffalo and tests out of the friggin' gym with his testing results. So, I think it's earned. It's a great story, but it's not just that it's a great story. It's that he earned the right to be on the 53-man roster. And yeah, I mean, if he's in the lineup, that means I think that, they're in trouble. But I feel like they're in a much better position right now than they were in, week 19 last year when they're asking A.J. Klein to go out and cover Travis Kelce. I mean, there are great starting linebackers in the NFL right now that will have a tough time doing that. But his relative athletic score, the instincts that he played with, and I think the confidence that he plays with makes him a really interesting player. And I think probably a prime candidate to be a special team standout this year, especially with the athleticism for sure.
We're talking to Nate Gary. You'll hear him on the Buffalo Bills radio network. You hear him on WGR as well, opening day. So I don't know if I'm the first person to ask you, Nate, about the Bills and the Cardinals week 1, but here we go. And look, it's week 1. There's so many things we don't know, not just about the Bills, but in this league. And number 1 on the list for me is Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, number 3 overall, a lot of promise. Are the Bills' corners up for the task in this game? Is this your number 1 concern heading into week 1?
Yeah, I think they are. Listen, this is a team that plays the Dolphins twice a year. I think they provide the most difficult matchup of any, group of receivers in the NFL. And I like Marvin Harrison Jr. a lot. I think he's a very fluid, very natural route runner. But he's a rookie playing in his first game. And outside of that, a lot of people, the legend of Greg Dortch, although he is very small in stature, has a legend that is growing large. Is he going to be some standout number 2 receiver? We'll see. Michael Wilson, a draft pick from last year, their number 3 receiver. It's a fine group, but I don't think it's a group that's necessarily keeping, defensive coordinators up at night. They're an up-and-coming team. I think it's a very important game for the Bills. It's a statement game. You can't start the season with a loss against the Arizona Cardinals and expect to be very many people's favorite to win this division moving forward out of week 1. So an important game, a matchup that I think the Bills will probably have the advantage in, especially because it's Harrison's first game as a pro. But I think their quarterback room has gone from a quiet concern to really for me anyways, a group that I'm fairly confident is both deep, but also a group at the top with Benford and Douglas that I think are better prepared to play Sean McDermott's zone-heavy scheme better than any pair in really the last couple of years. I mean, they're just both perfect zone-level corners for Sean McDermott, and I expect to see Douglas to be even better with more time in the system. And I mean, he's such an anticipatory player, anticipating routes and picking off, like walking and just knowing where the ball is going. And Benford is only going to, I think, get better playing with a guy like Douglas who can pass along a lot of the veteran instincts that he possesses.
Nate, we have the annual conversation every preseason when we see a lot of backup quarterbacks playing in football games, wondering who out there is a suitable backup to your team's quarterback. And I don't think any of us were inspired by what we saw out of Mitch Trubisky. Or Ben DiNucci, or Anthony Brown, for that matter, or Shane Buechele, certainly in week 1 of the preseason. My question is, do they bring back DiNucci to the practice squad, potentially elevate him to back up Josh week 1 if Trubisky isn't ready to go? It seems like Trubisky will be the backup, but we don't really know how severe that knee injury is.
Yeah, I think it was the great Tom Moore, the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts, that he was asked by the media why the backup quarterback doesn't get more reps during the week. And he said, because if Peyton Manning gets hurt, we're bleeped. That is largely the case for the Bills here. And listen, I think they spent more money than they should have on Mitchell Trubisky in the offseason. He's a veteran minimum to slightly above veteran minimum player for me. They could still make a move. I think Ben DiNucci is probably a lock to be their third quarterback. But largely, guys, I'm not sure it matters who their backup quarterback is. Short of, I think you do want a guy that if Josh Allen has to miss 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that you don't go 0-3, that you could at least stay in those games and have a guy. That's why, to me, a guy like Justin Fields is the ideal backup quarterback in the system, because if Josh Allen goes out, I just need a guy that can get you through a couple of games and have an elite level trait and running the football, being a scrambler. That to me is the kind of guy you want in this offense. But yeah, I mean, this is not a room inspiring a lot of confidence, and nor should it. It's probably one of the weaker backup rooms in the league. And I was very, very disappointed, because it's not like my expectations were high for Mitchell Trubisky, but man, he has really not lived up to the draft status, obviously. But it's been a tough run for Trubisky. And if he can't beat out, long-term Kenny Pickett, who's, the third quarterback in Philadelphia now, he's on his last straw in the league, guys. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I think at the end of the day, he's here because Josh Allen's is friends with him. That's what I think.
Yeah, last one from me, Nate. And I'm hearing a lot of people taking the Jets to win the division. Some people are saying the Dolphins, heck, if they won Week 18, they would have won the division last year. They didn't. My question, who do you like to win the AFC East this year?
There's a lot of what ifs, right? What if I won $1 million? Or, what if I was, 6'5" with a laser rocket arm? However, I am not. I am a 6-foot male with below average arm strength, but man, can I hit a long putt? I think for the Jets, I was watching Jeff Darlington on ESPN today, and it was Mike Greenberg, who obviously is just a Jets shill, and Bart Scott. And he said, these guys, classic Jets fans, no one's respecting the Jets. And he's like, there's nothing to do about respect. You guys got anointed the AFC East division winner and Super Bowl favorite last year, and your season ended 4 plays into the year. And you have a 40-year-old quarterback who's coming off of that injury this year. Could we just see it from the Jets? Like, they haven't done anything since Joe Namath, for God's sakes. Like, I just don't know why anyone has to get to the point where they're saying, yeah, it's the Jets, they're the favorite. I gotta see it, man. They are the Jets, and I know that in a perfect world, every season the slate is wiped clean.
Let me reframe it. Let me reframe it a little bit, because I hear what Gene's asking you, and I'm using his term here. We're reframing it here. On paper, who has the best roster in the AFC East?
On paper, it's probably the Jets.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And second best?
But,
it's tough, right?
Let me ask you a rebuttal question. Is it who has the best players or who has the best roster?
On paper, who has the best roster? Because I know that Josh Allen's a good player. I know that Sean McDermott is the best coach in the division. But just top to bottom, best roster on paper heading into week 1.
Top to bottom, I would take the Bills over the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins have a really strong top 7 to top 9 players. I think their roster is, frankly, not very good behind it. I'm not sold that I think the Dolphins are not going to be the same team that they were last year. They have the worst offensive line in football. And we saw what happened the last time they had a bad offensive line. And you can practice falling all you want. But as soon as Tua starts getting hit behind that offensive line, they're not going to be able to run the ball at the same efficiency they did last year with that bad offensive line. Like, Devon Achane's a really nice player, and he was getting you could fit a FedEx truck sideways through the holes he was getting. And that's not going to be the case with, I love him to death, but Liam Eichenberg, obviously as a former Notre Dame guy, he stinks. He's terrible. I think that their roster, their bottom 10 players might be the worst bottom 10 players in the league for the Dolphins. So the Jets, by not a wide margin, it's close, but, they don't have Josh Allen. And that's always going to be – whatever game the Bills go, any divisional game the Bills walk into, they will have such a dramatic advantage at the quarterback position that I think they can overcome, just about any other deficiency on their roster.
Nate Geary, radio host, Buffalo Bills Radio Network, WGR, and former Buffalo State quarterback. That's one of my regrets, Nate, that I didn't know you back then, but certainly watched you hold some place kicks over the years there. So.
I'll tell you, it's an underrated value and skill, but my coaches let me know all the time how much they appreciate a really good hold,
That's great. Nate, we'll look forward to hearing you during the regular season, buddy. Enjoy your time, and let's talk again soon.
Thanks, gents. Until next time.
You got it.
Thanks,
there he
Nate.
is, Nate Geary. Hear him on WGR, our Odyssey Sports sister station, and in the Buffalo Bills Radio Network. Broadcasts start here, what are we talking about, a week from Sunday?
Those are the best questions where it stops somebody dead in their tracks. Who's got the best roster?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and I think it's a thought-provoking question right now, because right now there's a lot that he's right. There's a lot that we don't know. We haven't seen any of it. What does it look? So what do we have to go on? We have. On paper, we have that. That's what we have to go on, right?
And understand what the Greeny reference, and I caught this too, and I don't even think it's worth discussing because you know the angle, you know the motive here. Greenberg believes that the top contenders of the Chiefs in the AFC is the New York Jets.
Yeah, that's right. But that's always been Greeny. That if you know the personality. The character that he's playing for his show.
So, but I'm not a See, I recognize this. It's a team that rhymes with Jets, and you kind of get excited, and then all of a sudden, bam, and you get all angry. But Greenberg, dude, we're one and the same here, dude.
They are. There's a lot of crossover in those fan bases, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a lot. I'm not a Jet fan.
There's a lot of crossover. A lot of crossover between those two fan bases. And are there similarities? Yeah, I think there might be some similarities between the fan base I lovingly refer to as social misfits, and the New York Jets fan base. Good stuff from Nate as well. We haven't heard yet from the Bills on their final 53, or have we? I don't think we have. I've seen some teams cross my feed.
And say it. It's healthy for you.
You're right, Gene.
Yeah,
4:30.
yeah.
I said 4:30. You're saying maybe by the time we get off the air.
No, I said 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock tonight. Well, we're just, putting our phones away and calling it a day. Because it's less than inspiring. Not really something you want to show off when people are engaged as they are right now. Happy Hour is next on The Fan. We'll get to some of the more notable cuts made, not just by the Buffalo Bills, but from around the NFL, guys that are looking for work today on NFL Cut Down Day. Literally hundreds of players looking for their next opportunity. We'll dive into what we've heard so far about the Bills' final 53-man roster. We'll get to a round of shots, and we'll take your calls. If you want to join us, pull up a stool at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
WNIBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
We're still awaiting the official word from the Buffalo Bills as to who made the team, but here's what we can tell you now. The Bills made a trade today with the Jets. Kick returner defensive back Brandon Codrington goes from the Jets to the Bills. This for a late-round pick swap. Various reports have these players not making the team. Wide receivers Tyrell Shavers, KJ Hamler, Justin Shorter. Quarterback Ben DiNucci did not make the team. Gabe Stevenson, the wrestler, amongst those who did not make the 53. Who did make the team, according to Ryan Talbot and others? Linebacker Joe Andreessen stays in Buffalo. Chiefs did a parting ways with wide receiver Kadarius Toney. The Titans moving on from former first-round pick corner Caleb Barley. Rochester Red Wings open a 6-game series tonight in Scranton-Wilkes-Barre. The Yankees continue their series in Washington. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
All right, here we are on Cut Down Day. As names are trickling out, according to reports, we'll wait until the official list comes out at 4 p.m. this afternoon for full roster cuts.
Mike Danger.
How you feeling after everything that we've seen so far this summer? That's the question.
How you feeling? You're excited for football.
Yeah? Are you excited for this team? Are you excited about what 2024 could look like for the Buffalo Bills?
Gene Battaglia.
Can I frame it a different way? I'm going to frame it this way. Where would this Bills team be without Josh Allen? It's not a first-place team. It's not a winning team.
They're picking in the top 10.
They're picking in the top 5.
Yeah, probably.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome to Happy Hour, roster cutdown day in the NFL as we await the official word from the Buffalo Bills on the final 53-man roster. You're welcome to join us at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN. We appreciate you listening. 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Our streams up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also on Twitch at The Fan Rochester, and your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, a quick note on quarterback depth. I think it's worthy of note because we've discussed this name in the last 48 hours. Kyle Allen made the Steelers' final 53-man roster.
Wow, there are a few teams that are keeping 3. Cleveland right at the top. And if you had to say who has the best depth, well, Tyrell Hunter has played in a playoff game. Jameis Winston, the former number 1 overall pick, they're both backing up Deshaun Watson. Now, there's some various reports that the Browns are shopping those quarterbacks, as they should. Do you really need 2 backup quarterbacks? I guess it's a nice luxury to have. Funny, I was prepared to come out and give you more takes and more everything about the 53. And my gosh, how did Shavers not make? And oh my gosh.
I knew this would get your attention.
Well, you pointed it out. So in our new studio, we've got a nice new monitor here, right?
Blame me because I'm distracted. I feel like I'm always distracted. I can be sloppy. I've got a lot of buttons and lights in front of me, and I get the ADD kicks in sometimes.
Okay, it's one of these things that is 100% manufactured. But because of this is going to take off on the Buffalo Bills, and it will be tomorrow's story. We're familiar with Around the Horn. Around the Horn, they're going to, they're going to move on. They're going to change the programming, but it's not an Around the Horn story, or is it? They are citing the NFLPA Players Survey. And I didn't realize this until they came out with it with a lead story. Guess who is the most overrated player according to the Players Survey? Again, the NFLPA.
Most overrated quarterback, Josh Allen, according to the Players Survey.
Wow.
That deserves a wow.
Wow.
Yeah?
Wow. Okay, this, in a secret way, this is actually great for the Bills. Are you kidding me? You're going to put that out there right now on the eve of the NFL season that 17, according to his peers, is actually the most overrated quarterback in the league. Let me try to take the other standpoint here, Danger. If it's not Allen, who is it then?
Overrated quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Justin Herbert? Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah. There's a lot of other names you could put on here.
Daniel Jones. I don't know that anybody rates him, so maybe he's not overrated.
Yeah. Where is this coming from?
I think it's coming from the shine that he gets and the reality that at times Josh Allen makes the wrong decision. And I also think players talk. I'm sure that there's cliques. I'm sure that there's gossip. I'm sure that there's chatter around the league.
I thought you were going to say around a playoff loss to the Bengals.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm not saying that it generated there or it started there, but I think if some of what we know about Josh Allen off the field is accurate and only a handful of people actually know that to be true, there's a handful of people that could get that word out quickly. But more than that, I think really the on-field stuff, when I think about why a player in the NFL would view Josh Allen and say he's the most overrated. One, he hasn't won anything. He continues to get outplayed in high-pressure games by Patrick Mahomes, games that matter in the postseason. And he makes the bad decisions that he makes from time to time. And then I wonder, is he part of like this good old boys club that others might view and be like, not my brand of vodka. The whole golden retriever kind of like me and the boys. And, not everybody's going to sign up for that personality.
It could just be like, it could be, why so much Buffalo? You haven't won anything. You're always on in prime time. That could also be part of it too. I don't like going up to Buffalo when it's cold. I mean,
why are you? Yeah, right. To try and hold just the image of Western New York under their thumb. I'm sure because we've heard it. There are players that say Buffalo sucks, man. Nobody wants to go to Buffalo. Nobody wants to play in Buffalo or visit Buffalo or even the Wings are overrated. Everything about Buffalo is overrated.
Who was the tight end? Jonnu Smith, was it? Yeah, Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, we've heard that as recently as this summer, right? So that actually doesn't surprise me a whole awful lot because you're on the cover of Madden, but you haven't won anything. You haven't gotten to the Super Bowl. You can't get over on Mahomes. And these guys talk. They all know. And so maybe some of what he presents as could be viewed by his peers as fraudulent. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're putting on an act. You're really not as upset or distraught after a bad loss as you actually are. And maybe you're not putting in the kind of time that others put in. I don't know any of this to be true. I'm just trying to process in my head why his peers in the NFL would view him and say overrated.
That's shocking to me. That is absolutely shocking. Or maybe it's just, hey, Gene, wake up for the reasons you just laid out there. Like, wake up, okay? There is kind of this anti-Buffalo, anti-Josh Allen thing out there. And, again, I go back to this. I think this is actually great for Allen and the Bills. And if this, how the news cycle works here in Western New York. News cycle right now with the Buffalo Bills, hey, who made the 53? And if you're just getting your car, trust me, we'll get to it, okay? We don't have it officially from the Bills yet, okay? But this just came across. Okay, and once we move past that, what's going to happen the rest of this week? Well, the Bills will practice. But once they practice, what is going to be the question that's going to be asked of McDermott? Bean speaks tomorrow. How about Josh Allen? Like, when they get asked the question, there's the response. There where it will be in the news cycle on Wednesday and Thursday and heading into week one. This is great. Trust me, this is great. You don't want the Buffalo Bills thinking this is our division. Gives you a little bit of fuel, doesn't it?
You got to use it as motivational fuel. And if you can use it as motivational fuel, it is great. Or if you can't, it's a harsh reality of what we've kind of been talking about, that the Bills may not be the best team in the AFC East, that the Bills might actually be vulnerable to a losing season this year and far below the expectations that we've had for this team in the McDermott Bean era.
Do you remember, this is just it's variance isn't the right word, but it's similar, right, Danger, to that story we had, and this is back mid-July. Mid-July, the dead zone of the NFL calendar. We're still waiting for camps to open, and there's Jeremy Fowler. And like most other reporters, you got to come up with a story. So Jeremy Fowler's making his calls, and he calls an unnamed executive. Why unnamed? Because the executive said, hey, let me tell you something, but you can't use my name.
All right, what if the executive was actually an executive with the Players Union and knew that the results of this survey were coming out?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So this is the same thing. The NFL executive that Jeremy Fowler didn't name said this: immense talent, but he makes a lot of mistakes. He's underdeveloped at winning at the line of scrimmage, tends to lock in on targets, more of a thrower than a precision passer, forces throws into traffic. We were so offended at that. How dare you? And, to Brandon Beane, of course, Brandon Beane's going to take it. And Brandon Beane's like, basically, hey, put your name on it.
Yeah.
And
a lot of idiots out there.
Yeah, a lot of idiots was his thing. Okay. And that's making this like a black and white issue. Like, okay, sometimes he forces throws, but name me a quarterback that doesn't. The thing with Josh Allen is this, and I'm going to make an analogy for all old-time Bills fans out there. Doug Flutie. When he would make a great play. Whoa, wow. Do you see Doug Flutie? This was the reaction around the country. But anybody that watched Flutie game in and game out, he ain't the quarterback. He can't make throws. And we would tell people that he's not the quarterback. He's not taking you places. This is why, well, this is the opposite. The opposite meaning when you see the worst of Josh Allen, when you see 4 turnovers against the Jets and trying to hurl somebody he shouldn't, or making a dumb pass against the Patriots, pick any one of these plays from Josh Allen, or carrying the ball like a loaf of bread, then their view will be skewed a little bit in the other direction.
I think it's it feels like it's all connected. That story from Fowler and this today, right?
Yeah.
The unnamed NFL executive could have actually been an NFL executive that had knowledge of this player survey that rates Josh Allen as the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
Okay. We split the difference here, 5-17.
Oh, we got it?
We've got it.
All right, we'll move on from that because I'm sure you'll hear plenty of that here in the coming days as we have a final 53 to get to here for the Buffalo Bills.
Okay. I am just scanning this right now, and there is one name on this list of cuts, Danger, that surprises me. Tight end Zach Davidson did not make the team.
Okay.
So I'm going to rip through this, okay? Released today by the Bills: Eli Anko, Keaton Bills, Gunnar Britton, Deion Kane, Will Clapp, defensive end Cameron Klein, Lyle Collins, Corey Couch, Zach Davidson, Branson Dean, Ben DiNucci.
Hey!
Here is an important thing. Offensive lineman Mike Edwards. There was a report today that was safety Mike. No, there's 2 Mike Edwards on this team. Safety Mike Edwards makes the team. Offensive lineman Mike Edwards does not. Frank Gore Jr. Richard Garage did not make the team. KJ Hamler. Corner Daquan Hardy didn't make the team.
That's fascinating. That's the one.
Okay, let's get back to that. Andy Isabella, Kareem Jackson, Xavier Johnson, Kingsley Jonathan, cut. Ken H. Lovely, Trey McKitty, Tyrell Shavers, Justin Shorter.
Gable Steveson, Deshaun Williams, Kendall Williamson, rounding out the Bills' releases. Now, 3 on injured reserve. Travis Clayton, Darrington Evans, and Matt Milano. So they didn't go IR with Balen Spector.
Balen Spector's just on the team. Okay, so
Right.
maybe he's closer to being back.
If I'm surprised by one, I'm surprised at Daquan Hardy. But that would explain the trade. That would make the trade make more sense. You have a specialized returner now in Brandon Codrington in a trade that between two teams that haven't traded since the 80s, I want to say.
Yeah, I get why the Bills are like, okay, let's bring this kid in here. He showed something. Why would you do this if you're the Jets? It's not quite to the level of, hey, Chiefs, you want that wide receiver? Here you go. Like, honestly, if you're the Jets, why are you helping the Bills?
And Daquan Hardy, for the opportunities that he got, I didn't think he looked terrible. Made some poor decisions in the return game and fielding punts he didn't need to field. Inevitably, he's a 6th-round draft pick and undersized, so the Bills decide to move on from him. They move on from KJ Hamler as well, and Codrington is the return guy heading into the season.
Will Clapp is a surprise, too. Casey Toohill made the team, defensive end.
Okay. Yeah, Will Clapp out. Toohill in. Just piece it all together here, Gino.
Yeah, we're just kind of reacting in real time. I thought for sure that with the Bills keeping, and it's going to be 5 wide receivers because MVS makes the team. We already knew from various reports that Shorter did not. Certainly Shavers did not. We knew the KJ Hamler didn't. But they're only keeping 3 tight ends.
Correct. Yeah, I'm just scanning the 53-man roster here, and Toohill making the roster. That feels like a surprise, but you have another guy that you can rotate in on the defensive end there as an edge rusher. Smoot wasn't really ever in question. He made the team. Mm-hmm. Quentin Morris did win that tight end battle. Quentin Morris is tight end 3 behind Kincaid and Knox. Josh Allen did make the team.
That's
overrated, but made the team. So we have reason to celebrate on Cut Down Day.
Yeah, and for those who wondered, no, the Bills did not make a backup quarterback switch. Trubisky is on the team. As you've kind of said, Danger, like Ben DiNucci, nobody's going to really want Ben DiNucci on their 53. He likely comes back on the practice squad, and in week 1, if you don't have Josh Allen in any game, you're probably not winning. But
Austin Johnson making the team at defensive tackle. He'll be part of that rotation as well, you would imagine, on the defensive line. Dwayne Carter, the rookie, making the team, obviously. Alec Anderson making the final 53. And, yeah, Buffalo Joe Andreessen, find a spot on the final 53-man roster. That story continues. And now, new corner Brandon Codrington, who that's the one that's surprising to me, that you moved on from Hardy. It felt like Hardy was making this team, but a 6th-round draft pick, a little bit undersized, and they go with a guy a little bit more explosive, or at least had a little bit more to salivate over in the preseason and the return game in Codrington.
So we got 2 stories going on you can react to. You can give us a call, 866-4FAN. You can write to us on X, our handle, The Fan Rochester, as we're reacting to the Bills' initial, I'm not saying final 53, I'm saying initial 53, because I'm sure this is going to change between now and the Arizona game. We've also got this story that the NFLPA Players Survey, in terms of quarterbacks, lists Josh Allen as the number 1 overrated. Danger, I'm just going to read this, and I can't wait to hear your reaction. This is from a good listener, Breakroom MD. Danger. Mahomes has outplayed Allen. In what game can you say he definitively, quote-unquote, outplayed him? I'd say that Allen outplayed him in both divisional games. Mahomes has had players around him step up. When has a Bills player over the last 4 years stepped up?
I can't get past the last time we saw Josh Allen on a field, and it was in the Chiefs game, and you had the Chiefs where you wanted them, at home, in the divisional round. And Josh Allen had open receivers underneath, and he went for the kill shot, and he didn't hit it. It's not a high percentage throw. It's a good throw, not a high percentage throw. And I guess when I say Mahomes outperformed Allen, I'm not talking about statistics. I know that wins aren't a quarterback stat, but he's done more than Allen, clearly, because they keep beating the Bills in these divisional games. Yes, 13 seconds was a travesty, and you can't pin that on Josh Allen, but you can also say Patrick Mahomes, when they needed plays, he made plays. He took what the defense gave him, and he made plays. And I guess that's my point. I can understand what you're saying, because to the eyeball test, you'd be like, Josh Allen played great in that game. What do you mean? Steph Diggs catches that, and it's a different game. Well, yeah, what if? Make the right decision before you make the throw. And I think Allen still struggles with that part of his game.
Yeah, it was almost like, hey, we're going to give you the easy stuff here, but we know you're going to play hero ball. And to hear Tom Brady just offer that criticism of Josh Allen, like, hey, you got to take what they're giving you. And
he made a career of it.
Yeah.
That's all he ever did.
Yeah, it's this is the finer point of quarterbacking, is that not only does the head coach have to manage the game, the quarterback has to manage the game.
What are you looking at the line of scrimmage?
Yeah.
You know, to the point that was made by the unnamed NFL executive, are you winning before the snap? Do you know before the snap exactly what you're looking at? Do you know if they're baiting you? Like, if they know your mentality, you're a hero, and you're gonna chuck it downfield. Are they baiting you into that? I feel like Spagnuolo has his number. And look, he's a great quarterback. He's a franchise quarterback. There's a lot to love about Josh Allen. And I sit here and I struggle with, all right, the players are voting him the most overrated. Why would that be? And I think it's because of that. I think it's because we latch on to the exceptional plays and we see him hurdle linebackers and make throws he shouldn't make.
Buffalo hasn't won anything.
We haven't won anything.
They haven't won anything. You haven't been to a Super Bowl. Like, what are we doing? Why are they so, like, he makes great highlights? Now, you could say, well, Baltimore with Lamar Jackson hasn't been. Well, Lamar Jackson's won 2 MVPs. Lamar Jackson playoff time doesn't hold a candle to Josh Allen. And listen, to the writer's point there, like, in terms of top 5 reasons why the Bills lost to the Chiefs this last time,
I'm not putting it on Josh Allen.
No, I don't have Josh Allen in the top 5. However, that final sequence, yeah, that's not good. The great quarterbacks make those plays.
Some people would argue that. Some people would say, you know, if it wasn't for the pass rush and him getting nicked on that throw, maybe he completes that throw. I'm like, you don't even have to worry about making that throw to the end zone, because you got guys wide open and you can continue to kill clock and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. And maybe that's just the recency in me. That's my lasting image of this team. It's not even Tyler Bass missing the field goal. I know a lot is being made of that and whether or not he'll recover from that or he has the yips because of that moment. Maybe he does. But for me, it's still Allen not taking what the defense gives him.
I'm wondering, too, like, and we'll figure this all out tonight, like this final 53, what does this do for the cap? Like, did they save any money? Are there other moves? When we're asking the question, like, hey, why isn't there another kicker at least to compete with Tyler Bass? Do you know the reason why? Because they don't want that other kicker to look better than Tyler Bass, because they have no other option. They can't swallow that $7.9 million or whatever it is. It's 7.3 dead cap figure for Tyler Bass. This is the first time, Danger, I've said the Bills are operating a little on the cheap here.
Yeah, I also think it was funny. We brought this up with Nate Geary last hour when he said that the hope might be that instead of counting on Tyler Bass, that they'll go for it on 4th and 3. Your point is absolutely correct. What's more likely, Sean McDermott being aggressive midfield in those situations and going for it on 4th and short, or punting? It's the latter. It's punting. It's going to be more conservative, and we don't think we can get the field. We're not going to give up the field position if Bass misses a 51-yarder.
There are exceptions, Danger. Sometimes the pace of that game, maybe it's not a bad thing, but by and large, the data will show you to go for it on 4th and 3.
We'll have more on the Bills' final 53-man roster, and we have a round of shots coming up next on the fan.
Yeah, a couple follow-up to the story here. One of them being Rick Pitino. They caught the guy, Danger.
Oh, the guy that stole from Patino.
I think criminals are not smart. They're really not here. Patrick Mahomes Sr., not a good day for him as, he's getting punished here. And also college football returning here. But when I tell you some of these stories here when it comes to how long you can play college football now, what do you think was the last year? Like, before it was like, okay, 4 years, you're done. So 24, 23, 20, 21. What do you how many years do you think one can
I'm
eke
convinced
out?
that DJ Uiagalelei is 37 years old.
That might be true.
Yeah.
Well, I'll fact check that when we get the break here.
Yeah, I think they have a pretty strong shot. Like, they can play minor league football for a long time now. We'll get to that and more next with a round of shots. 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
Sports Update.
Final 53 officially out for the Buffalo Bills. Amongst the guys making the team, linebacker Joe Andreessen, defensive end Casey Toohill. Cut today, wide receiver Terrell Shavers, along with KJ Hamler, Justin Shorter, quarterback Ben DiNucci is out there. Gabe Stevenson, tight end Zach Davidson did not make the team. 3 players on IR, Matt Milano, running back Darrington Evans, and offensive lineman Travis Clayton. The Bills did make a trade this afternoon with the Jets of all teams. Kick returner Brandon Codrington going from the Jets to the Bills. This for a late-round pick swap. The Chiefs today parting ways with wide receiver Kadarius Toney. The Titans moving on from former first-round pick, the corner Caleb Farley. Rochester Red Wings on the road tonight. They opened a 6-game series at Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The best local sport talk in the Flower City. One Bills Live in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Weekday afternoons on The Fan, Rochester.
All right, it's time for a round of shots on The Fan.
Yeah, let's start in Kansas City, where the news wasn't all good today, Danger. Actually, technically, it's not in Kansas City, but Patrick Mahomes Sr. pleading guilty today to a charge of driving while intoxicated, third or more. He took a deal here, and he needed to take this deal. He's going to get 5 years probation. This was Mahomes Sr.'s second DWI. The first happened back in 2018, where he spent 40 days in jail.
Yeah, still remember him in the major leagues. I still remember, following the Twins. I just remember,
and Mets, yeah.
And kind of sad that, the wealth that the family has at this point. Why are you getting behind the wheel if you're hammered?
Because it was his second DWI. He was facing up to 10 years on this. So, yeah, this is what they call a deal. While the Mahomes family may be having issues, the Kelsey family does not. Travis and Jason, congratulations to them. They sold the distribution rights today to their pod to Amazon. 3 years, $100 million. Travis, just retire now, buddy. You got all the money. You got the girl.
Yeah, right. I struggle to say they deserve it. They deserve it. They have big names. They have big personalities. They have a big following. And obviously, if he stays with Taylor Swift, their following is immense, right? Like their following goes beyond just football now. So he can benefit with that distribution deal there with Amazon. Good for them.
Probably. Just seriously, like how many people actually had them still being together coming up on the 1 year mark here?
Oh, I wish nothing but the best. I think they're going to be together forever. I think they're a happy couple, and they're going to be together. Is that wrong? Sorry, excuse me for being a romantic. I think that they're both completely stable individuals that lead normal lives, and they're going to be happy forever, Gene.
People are taking you at face value right now.
I'm being serious.
I don't believe you for a second.
I'm being serious. I wish nothing but the best for the happy couple. I hope they are together forever. I hope they make each other happy. I hope Jason Kelsey keeps coming to Bills games and we embrace him as if he's one of ours. What's wrong with us?
That was weird.
What's wrong with us?
Weird. We need validation.
You understand that that's Travis Kelsey's brother, right? Okay, so he's in the suite with Taylor Swift, and are we embracing him because we're in close proximity to Taylor Swift and we're not allowed to heckle the guy who's the brother of the enemy on the field? I don't know.
Yeah, he's a fun-loving guy.
Fun-loving guy, sure, yeah. Shirt off, yelling at people, chugging beers. Good stuff. I think they're going to be happy and together forever.
Follow up on the story to St. John's basketball coach Rick Pitino, who, remember, he had his office broken into. Items were stolen. We now have an arrest. 26-year-old Emmanuel Yakovov was arrested. He had an accomplice here. It took memorabilia from Pitino's office, including a sword.
Now, this is the part that I love. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Yakubov and his partner, who remains at large, did not conceal their identities.
Yeah.
Made it real easy to identify them on the security tape. The getaway vehicle was a moped. Again, easily tying them to the crime scene.
Right. Moped, not the greatest escape vehicle when you're on a heist. If you're planning a heist, I wouldn't say moped would be a good one as your exit vehicle. I love that Pitino is rocking a sword in his office. That's a power move. I want a sword. I couldn't get away with a hockey stick or a baseball bat because, maybe that's a little threatening. How about a sword with some sort of meaning in your office? Oh, that's a sword that was handed down from my grandfather to my father to me, and, just passed it down through generations, and it's in my office. You got to have a sword in your office. That's a power move.
Yeah, as the sword, it was a ceremonial sword, apparently. So this isn't something from medieval times, but Pitino has taken to social media. He wants a new one.
A new sword.
Yeah, because so far that has not been recovered. But that is a power move, Danger. Like, why don't you bring a sword up to your office?
I don't have a sword. If I had a sword, I think I would put it in my office.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that I'm putting it on the mantle. I think I'm putting it in my office. Sword in the office. Follow Pitino's steps here. That's a power move.
So baseball fans may remember the name Greg Swindell, the lefty reliever, spent 17 years in the big leagues. Cleveland, I remember with. He won a World Series with Arizona in 2001. This is the story. His 29-year-old daughter went missing. Brianna Swindell was last seen in the Austin area with her ex-boyfriend. Both phones were off. This was reported last Thursday. Friday, well, we have an update. She was found safe, but we don't have any details about what exactly happened.
Were they carrying a sword on a moped by any chance?
Well, this was in Austin, Texas. That was up in Queens.
Okay.
So, no.
So they probably couldn't have gotten to Queens from... Well, they could have, maybe. I don't know what the fuel efficiency is on your standard moped today. But good that they have found her and that she is safe. No word on the ex?
No word on the ex. So
okay, so the story, I think, still has some loose ends.
I think you're right there.
Okay.
Pretty soon, your social media timelines are going to be filled with back-to-school pictures, which, look, that's great. Take pictures, have some fun. Here's something that's different. Writes Alan Bowman to his own picture. Who is he? Well, I'll tell you what he wrote. First of all, happy first day of 19th grade. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Bowman is 24. He's entering his 7th year of Division I college football. He's now the starting quarterback at Oklahoma State. His journey has taken him from Texas Tech to Michigan to now playing for Mike Gundy. Texas Tech, he was a freshman back in 2018.
So, a couple things. One, love that he's at Oklahoma State. Maybe he's going to stay there till he's 40. You want to pick come after me because I'm 40. He's 24. I'm 40. How old is Gundy now? He's got to be over 50 at least, right? That clip.
Well, come after me. I'm 60. Yeah.
Come after me. I'm about to retire.
No, if you've seen the Mike Gundy hair, though.
Oh, I call that one the Arkansas waterfall.
Like at some point, though, you have to retire.
I call that one the Arkansas waterfall. It's
He's 57.
Okay. God, was that 17 years ago? Was it that long ago?
I know.
So many people listening don't have no idea the reference that I'm making there, where Van Gundy went after the reporter because they're writing bad things about his team, and he's a 40-year-old man who can take the criticism. Right about me, not about my kids.
Come after me. I'm a man.
Yeah, these are kids. Well, your starting quarterback is 24. I mean, I guess you could say still a kid, but you need to walk me through, Gino. Walk me through how he's playing for 7 years. You started as a freshman Texas Tech in 2018.
Yeah.
You get a redshirt year. Can you get a different redshirt year when you go to a different school? How does that work?
So, well, first you can get up to
two
redshirts here, and then because of the COVID year, everybody. And this, by the way, is the last year the COVID year, 5th year exception that goes away.
Okay.
So we're finally behind that, from the eyes of the almighty NCAA. 2018 to 2020, Texas Tech. 21 to 22 in Michigan. Didn't play in Michigan. And then he goes to Oklahoma State. Well, he was, Cade McNamara won the battle between Bowman and J.J. McCarthy. Bowman appeared in one game through an interception. That was it. So Bowman was beat out twice, basically, in Michigan. And then he transferred to Oklahoma State.
Nice that he's getting a chance at age 24 in college football. I'm convinced that DJ Uiagalelei is 37 years old. He's replaced Bo Nix in my mental rankings of old college football quarterbacks. Because out of Bo Nix, I'm like, didn't Bo Nix back up Cam Newton at Auburn? It feels like he was in college football that long.
DJ Ungulele, 2020 for Clemson. So he came in. So 2020 would have been the first year that Trevor Lawrence was not there. And didn't go so well. I remember they're propping him up and I'm watching, I don't see it. And then he runs for the hills and goes to Oregon State. That didn't go so well. Florida State. And, boy, you start the season with a loss. Florida State.
Tough.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
One bowl game in his credit, the 2021 Cheez-It Bowl.
Ooh, Cheez-Its are terrible.
Delicious.
They're just the worst of all snacks. Yeah, he struggles. I think he's a great athlete that struggles throwing the ball downfield. I just don't think he has that. But, hey, maybe the fourth time's a charm. Find another school next year. Is there a way that he can play another year, or is this it? This must be it for him. This
is it.
Age 37. No, I'm kidding.
We're
I'm kidding.
in the 19th grade.
Yeah, going into the 19th grade. Well done. Quick break. We'll come back. We'll set the table for tomorrow afternoon. A new show lined up for you here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. on the terms of the trade between the Bills and the Jets. Brandon Codrington, corner/returner, and a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick going to the New York Jets. I want to say the first time that these two teams have traded since what? Was it 87?
That's what I read here, yeah.
Yeah. So the rare interdivisional trade between the Bills and the Jets, and the Bills getting something of need as they move on from 6th-round pick Daquan Hardy, who I think a lot of people had penciled in with KJ Hamler not making the team earlier today, penciled in as the returner. He didn't make the team, so Codrington gets that role.
Tim writing in, dear NFL teams, stop signing Nathan Peterman. You're delaying his prosperous college coaching career.
College? I think he's a quarterback's coach in the NFL right away. Tomorrow. Sign him tomorrow. That's his next role, right?
Do you think Sean McDermott, for the emergency quarterback in week 1, would rather have Ben DiNucci or Nathan Peterman?
Well, I mean, come on. This is not really a question, right? You know the answer. The answer is simple. Of course it's Ben DiNucci. You know why it's Ben DiNucci.
Why?
Because he's Italian. Break your knees if he's not on that practice squad. We found the thing that could get Sean McDermott over Nathan Peterman, an Italian. We got a quarterback whose name ends in a vowel. We got to put him on the practice roster.
Yeah, come on. You want Nathan Peterman or
Ben DiNucci? Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get news on when players are getting added to the Bills practice squad here over the course of the next few days, and we'll continue to update you on that tomorrow on the show. We'll get back on track with PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In on the BetQL Network. Odyssey Sports Betting Insider and Insider Calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. If you missed Nate Gary, if you missed Matt Perino from today, you can get those conversations on demand wherever you get your pod on. Just search out the Sports Bar. That includes your free-to-download Odyssey app, AUDACY. JR Sport Brief next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the